the Lars Larson Show. We're live on Capitol Hill at the Phoenix Park Hotel for Feet to the Fire, which is all about immigration issues in America. And, of course, one of those immigration issues that we've talked about for a long time, at least since the presidency of Donald Trump, is the issue of sanctuary cities, because certain cities around America have decided to distinguish themselves, not in a positive way, but in a negative way, by saying, if you are in the country illegally, we will aid and abet you and allow you to stay in our cities, and our law enforcement agencies will not take any kind of action against you. Now, I think that's shameful, and I've told you why. A gentleman knows all the numbers and actually has a brand new top 10 worst list is Dale Wilcox, who's sitting in front of me, the executive director of the Immigration Law Reform Institute. Dale, it's good to have you back on the program.
Well, thanks for having me.
And at Feet to the Fire especially. So tell me about this new list.
Yeah, we've been looking deeply into various jurisdictions who do not cooperate with the federal government, and we put together this top 10, or I would say bottom 10 list of jurisdictions who don't cooperate with federal immigration authorities. So when ICE comes knocking saying, we want that criminal alien that you have in your jail, hold them for us, they say, no, we're not going to hold them. We're going to release them back out into the community to do more harm.
And it doesn't make any sense that they would do this, but you put San Francisco at the top. I'd probably agree with you, although I think Seattle and Portland ought to be in there too, just because I'm perhaps a bit more up close and personal with them.
Yeah.
But why San Francisco beyond, I guess, the case of Kate Steinle?
Yeah, you have Kate Steinle, you have Drew Rosenberg, who was hit by an illegal alien while he was riding his motorcycle. He wasn't killed on impact. He was killed when the illegal alien backed over him several times to try to escape the scene. San Francisco has been particularly egregious in denying ICE detainer requests, which basically is just a request sent to a local jail when they pick up someone who they've charged with a crime or somebody who's served time. ICE will send a request and say, hey, please hold them for 48 hours. We're coming to get them. Or they send a request, let us know when you're going to release him from jail so that we can be there at the door to pick him up to start deportation proceedings. Well, San Francisco is notorious for just ignoring those requests. Even before California instituted its new SB 54 sanctuary state law.
Dale, I know that a lot of people think of the border and the southern states as being the hallmarks or the cities where this is happening, but you have New York City as number 2.
Oh, yeah. New York City is notorious for denying detainer requests or cooperating with ICE whatsoever. Thousands of detainer requests are filed in New York and ignored. And they have a serious problem right now, serious MS-13 gang problem. And they'll turn these people right back around out onto the streets. I think in the last year alone, they've dishonored 2,900 detainer requests for criminals.
So that means 2,900 criminals who could have been removed from the community by simply picking up the phone and saying to ICE, we have an illegal alien, you can take him into custody. The person is gone, not just from the city, but the state and the community and everything else, gone from the country. Now, they can try to come back, but do you have any way of assessing how, if cities began to enforce these laws stringently, could we cut down on the number of people who do return? Because right now, when they return, the consequence is almost nothing. They get a free trip home, and then they just come back across the border.
Well, that's the thing. Every time you come back across the border, the penalty increases. So if local jurisdictions don't help to remove these individuals, they won't suffer the full consequences as if they were removed and then tried to re-enter. So it's a felony to re-enter. It's a misdemeanor to enter the first time. It's a felony
after you've
been deported. So it ratchets up the penalty. So, these individuals need to be taken off the streets. I mean, it doesn't make sense. What logical reason could these politicians in these jurisdictions have for wanting criminals back out into the streets? And let me tell you, the immigrants themselves don't want them back into their communities, because that's where they go. They assimilate back into the immigrant community and make them victims of crime.
And in that case, you're talking about the legitimate immigrant community.
Yes. Well, they prey on the legitimate immigrants and other illegal aliens.
All right. Now, since you're with the Immigration Law Reform Institute, can you help my audience understand this? The president campaigned on and went into the presidency saying, we're going to tell the sanctuary cities you have a choice. If you want the federal grant money, huge amounts of federal grant money, you have to help with this law problem. Now, that's not an unusual request. There are lots of cities and counties and states that have been told, straighten up your highway or speed limit issues or seatbelt issues or talking on the cell phone issues, or you lose your federal highway grants. Education the same way. If you don't comply, why is it has been so unsuccessful legally? And make this understandable for non-lawyers like me.
Well, it's been a mixed bag. Under federal law, the president is allowed to withhold grants that are related to the purpose of the grant.
Like law enforcement.
Well, right. So Trump has actually won those cases where it's related to law enforcement grants. He has withheld grants that are even broader, I guess, than what you would consider law enforcement grants. And in those cases, the courts have said, no, you've gone too far.
Except, let me ask you, you're the lawyer, not me. But when you look at the impact illegal aliens have on a community, they impact healthcare, they impact education, they impact law enforcement. There's almost no part of life that cities have a role or counties have a role in that is not impacted by illegal aliens. How is it that before the courts you can't say, look, they have an impact on education, they have an impact on healthcare, we're going to withhold that as well?
Yeah, you're right. But in this case, he was focused on criminal aliens, and the courts have said, no, you can only go after criminal justice grants. So that's what the courts have ruled. I agree with you. And we all remember, Philadelphia is number 4 on our top 10 worst list. We all remember the mayor there celebrating when he won the case against Trump, withholding grants from Philadelphia. Just a month after he did that victory dance, there was an illegal alien there arrested for raping a 5-year-old girl. Now, this guy had been in custody before. Philadelphia refused to turn him over to ICE. ICE had submitted a detainer request. They refused to comply with that, and within a month of the mayor doing that little dance, this alien committed rape on a child.
And speaking of that, we're sitting here in the District of Columbia. Maryland is not too far away, and Maryland's Montgomery County has become a real ground zero for a lot of these most egregious crimes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. On our list as number 7, we actually had a tie for number 7. We had Montgomery County, Maryland, and Fairfax County, Virginia. And then number 8 was Prince George's County, Maryland, all 3 D.C. suburbs. And we have a serious problem in this area. There have been, since Montgomery County instituted their sanctuary policy July 25th of this year, there have been 10 sexual assaults by illegal aliens,
including on children.
And last week, a gentleman was an illegal alien, a suspect was arrested for raping a 6-year-old. So we're talking on several of these cases: 6-year-old, 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yes,
but I guess to some extent, I don't understand. Communities can often become outraged about relatively small matters when it comes to criminal justice. I mean, there are thousands of felony cases, misdemeanor cases, but signature crimes sometimes grab the attention of a community. How is it that when in Montgomery County you don't have a real public outrage about this?
Well, we saw that in Kate Steinle's case.
Yeah.
It electrified the nation. We were just appalled what was going on there, and some could argue that President Trump is president today because of that. Montgomery County actually held a rally. Citizens got together last week here.
Good.
And very popular talk show hosts were there and were helping to amplify the people's voice. So people in Montgomery County are getting fed up. They're not sitting still. And that's what I would recommend. People always ask all the time, what can we do? You've got to go to town halls. You got to put pressure on them, because what they do is they're just going to ride this out. They're just going to, people will forget in a week. They'll be, now they're talking about impeachment. They'll forget about us.
Dale, tell me this. If my audience wants to get a hold of the list and the factual data that backs it up, where do they find it? You
can find it on our website. That's IRLI.org. And then also we maintain a Facebook page, and we're on Twitter at IRLI Law.
Very good. Dale, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks
you
very much. You bet. That's Dale Wilcox from he's the executive director of the Immigration Law Reform Law Institute. We'll be back in a moment. We're live on Capitol Hill for Feet to the Fire, and you're listening to the Lars Larson Show.